What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Steel to Stone channel. So today we're doing something a little bit different here, and I'm going to walk you guys through a tip repair. So this is the civivi NoX. I bought this knife sometime last year, right around when these first came out. Nice little small gentleman's folder from civivi, and just a great little budget knife. Nitro V steel, full stainless steel frame lock, running on bearings, great action, nice strong detent. It's a beautiful little knife. I'd love to see more companies do some stainless steel frame locks. I think they're a bit underutilized in the industry. But anyways, let's talk about what's going on with this. So quick story time. Bought this knife last year, had it for a couple months, and I was with my dad one day, and we were talking about knives, of course, because I like talking about knives. And we got on the topic of his knife, and come to find out, he didn't actually have a folding knife to carry around with him. Now, he's got a lot of old traditionals that have some sentimental value to him, but he didn't have a modern folding knife that he could carry and use every day. So I was like, oh, well, damn, we need to fix that. So I told him I would bring him some, let him check out, a handful of knives that I had, and he could pick whichever one he wanted and keep it. So that's what I did. I brought him a handful of knives, and this was the one that he chose. And at the time, I didn't really think about it, but my dad works construction. He wasn't really used to carrying a knife. I didn't think that he would actually be using it all that much. And he's also a superintendent, so it's not like he's actually building things on a daily basis. He's just overseeing things being built. So I didn't think he would abuse it too much, but nonetheless, he picked this one, so I said, sure, take it. And he's been carrying it ever since. I sharpened it for him once, and when I sharpened it, it was fine. And then he recently brought it to me and said, yeah, I hate to tell you this, but I broke the tip off of that knife you gave me. And I was like, nah, no issue. We can fix that. And I thought I would share with you guys how I go about fixing something like this. So I did a video, I think it was last year sometime, on doing a tip repair, on a slightly broken tip with a stone, with a bench stone. And I'll leave a link in the description if you guys want to check that one out. But this here is a little bit worse. As you can see, that's a pretty well broken tip. That's about, what, probably over 1/8 of an inch wide. So it's going to take a good bit of work to fix this. So we're going to do it on the belt sander, and I'll walk you guys through it. But there's a couple things I wanted to talk about before we did that. So number one, when I go to do something like this, fixing a tip, I normally like to take the material off of the spine if I can. And the main reason I like to do that is because a lot of knives are drop point or spear point, and the spine just naturally trails down that way anyway. So a lot of broken tips, you can just kind of lean it down a little bit more and fix the tip. But with this one, it's got a fairly straight spine on it. It's got that swedge ground into it that looks really nice, and this knife is very thin behind the edge. So I thought, well, if we're going to fix this, it might be better to take it off the edge, because number one, if I grind into this, I'm going to have to fix that swedge, which I could do, but don't want to do if I don't have to. And number two, if he's going to be fairly abusive to this, which it seems like he's going to be, it might be advantageous for him to have a thicker tip. So I thought, well, we'll just kind of upsweep the blade a little bit more and grind it back up to the tip and just take off material from here, leave the spine the same. And since this is a thin hollow grind, when I measure right there where it's broken off at the spine, it's still only 20 thousandths behind the edge. So it's not going to thicken it up that much, but it's going to thicken it up a little bit and make it a little more sturdy for him. And I think that'll be most beneficial. Now, a big thing you want to check before you go and do this is look at the knife in the closed position, because depending on where the blade is broken off at, you don't want to get into a situation where you grind a bunch of material off at the end of the blade and then you close the knife and the new position of the tip is outside of the handle when the knife's in the closed position, because then you've basically just ruined the knife and it's kind of useless at that point. So take a look, mark it off where you want to put or how you want to repair it, and then close it and make sure that that's going to be inside of the handle. And I think we'll be good with this one. Looks like it's still going to be about 1/8 of an inch or close to it below the start of the handle up here. So it won't be exposed. You won't risk, catching your finger or anything like that on it when we cut that material off. So I think that'll be a good way to fix this. And we'll switch over here to the belt grinder and I'll show you guys how I fix this, talk about a couple more things, and then we'll end the video. Alright guys, so if you're going to be using a high-speed grinder to repair a tip on any knife, you want to take into account what type of steel that knife has and check out the heat treat protocol for that steel. And if it's a stainless steel, you might want to just go ahead and assume that it's going to be heat treated fairly similarly to this steel right here, because they all have fairly low tempering temperatures. So we'll talk about what that is real quick before we get started. So if you look right here at this little Excel spreadsheet type thing, it shows you all the tempering temperatures for certain hardnesses with a cryo treatment, which is just a cold treatment for this particular steel. So I don't know exactly what the hardness of this knife is. I haven't had it checked, but I'm assuming it's somewhere around 60 to 62 more than likely. So if they did do a cryogenic treatment with this after hardening, then it was tempered somewhere between 400 and 500 degrees, which is a little bit higher than the protocols for a lot of other stainless steels. But if they didn't use a cryo treatment and they just went straight from hardening to tempering, then they used the protocol down here for without cryo. And if that's the case and they shot for 60 on this, 60 HRC, then they probably used a temperature of 350 degrees for the tempering process, which means if you get this blade up higher than that temperature, you risk softening the steel in that area that you cut it over that temperature. So with all that being said, you basically just want to be very careful about how you go about grinding something like this, and just make sure that you're taking your time and keeping the blade cool in the process. That way you don't spoil the heat treatment. And like I said, all stainless steels, or most of the ones that I've looked at least, and the knives that I've made, they all have pretty low tempering temperature, somewhere around 3 to 500 degrees. So just keep that in mind if you're going to be grinding on a knife. And let's move over to the grinder and we'll go ahead and do this. Alright, so here we'll get to grinding and matching our Sharpie line. The first thing I did was tape up the handle on the knife just so I didn't scratch it up on the rest, and I squared the rest with the platen so that it'd be cutting straight into the edge and not at an angle. And then every time you see me take my hand away, that's me dipping the knife into the bucket of water that I have so that I keep the blade cool. And I'm just going slow, taking my time and making sure that it comes out right and that I don't spoil the heat treatment in the process. So I'm just kind of blending it in with the already sharpened edge and sort of following that Sharpie line as a guide. And then less is more with a grinder like this. Doesn't take a whole lot of pressure or force to get what you want, and if you use too much, it's easy to tear something up. More than likely, at the speed I'm going and how fast I'm removing material from this, just taking light passes like this, it probably wouldn't hurt the heat treatment either way. But it's always good to be cautious. Better safe than sorry with something like this. And it only takes half a second or so to dip the blade every pass or so. So I think it's better to do like this with any hardened steel than to not do it. Alright, so here's part of the sharpening with the grinder. I didn't include much because I couldn't hold the camera and sharpen at the same time. But with my grinder, you can lay it down like this and sort of use it as a bench stone. Or, you could use a protractor app and set the angle on the grinder and just hold it at a, horizontal plane and sharpen that way if you wanted to. But I chose to do it like this. And I just visually set the angle in my mind with the grinder turned off, and then went back and did light passes per side, looking at it very often to make sure I was maintaining my angle correctly, and just slowly creeping up to getting rid of that unsharpened section. Alright, so now we're done with the grinding and sharpening on the grinder. You can see we've got a nice little full burr there. See if we can just pull it off with the strop. All right, so now there we basically got a brand new factory edge, essentially fully fixed. Got some sharpening compound stuck on there. So that's how you do it, or how I do it at least. And yeah, that worked out pretty good. Still looks great in my opinion. Didn't thicken it up behind the edge too much, even though, you know, I took a little bit of material off the entire edge, fixed the tip nice and pointy again, and when we close it, I'll cut myself. Tips inside the handle, nice and deep a little bit. Not super deep, but we don't have to worry about ever catching ourselves on that. If he breaks it again, we might have a problem, but as far as right now, we're good to go. And I think that still looks nice. If you'd never seen one of these knives before, you'd never know that the tip had been broken and it had been repaired. So there you have it, guys. That's it for this video. It's a little bit longer than I hoped it would be, but I think it turned out pretty good. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any questions, comments, tips for me, improvements, let me know in the comments below, and I definitely would appreciate it if you like the video and subscribe if you've enjoyed any of my content. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. I know I don't make very many videos anymore, but I definitely would appreciate it if you've enjoyed or found any of my videos useful to hit that subscribe button. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you next time.